Um, we were talking about, so my sister is pregnant and she's going to get a fat fucking, it's like the right time to be pregnant and an accountant, because like all of the social changes that have come with women's rights means that for years she was getting special treatment from like partners being like, is there anything that we can do? Like, how do we keep you on? We need to make sure, because they are doing their best to close what they call the wage gap between men and women. And predictably, at 30 years old, my sister got pregnant and is going to stop working and is going to step away and is going to have, full maternity leave and all these wonderful things. And I was talking to my dad about that, how we should deal with that as a society. My short answer is it should come at a federal level, not at a company level, because that disadvantages companies that hire women and introduces this incentive for them to not hire women. Whereas if we value mothers taking care of kids collectively, that should be something that is collectively shared and not. Anyways, but then he started talking to me about the value of being a mother and how it's not recognized and we need to pay for it. And here's what I said. This kind of came to me on the fly, but I'm curious what you think. We have a supply-demand issue with mothers, which is to say the supply is up here as a society and the demand is down here. Or the demand is right here. Demand,
why do you think that the demand is lower?
You're right. The demand is at the supply.
Yeah.
Which is to say that the additional money that we as a society need to give to mothers in order to get them to have babies is zero.
Yeah, that's the more accurate.
Yes, it's at the same level.
Yeah.
And the value that mothers capture is not in dollars from society. It is in their own satisfaction at getting to be a mom, which is not shared equally by the rest of society. So they are, in fact, appropriately paid at no money from
Unless
society.
they don't want to be moms, but then they don't have to be moms.
Yes, and then my dad said, well, what about, he gave me a bunch of other examples of teachers and this and that. So I said, okay, well, the number of teachers you have at $0 or accountants you have at $0 is zero. Nobody does those things if you don't pay them. So you have to pay them this much in order to get as many as we need. Now, that doesn't mean, I still think that the subtle difference is that we don't necessarily need more mothers. What we might need are kids that are raised with a parent that loves them.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
That's what we need. We don't actually need more moms. We need more well-adjusted children.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's an important distinction in the argument, which is to say that you could have dad at home, you could have mom at home, you could have collective programs that make for better children. You could do all sorts of things, but we don't need to, I think, close this male-female wage gap if moms want to be the ones that do the staying at home child rearing.
Well, there's I think you're kind of combining two things. One is maternity leave, which is a woman that wants to go take care of the baby in the early stages when it's important for development, I think, according to what little I've looked into on the topic, but then desires to go back and have a career, which is different than someone who wants to be a stay-at-home mother. And I think you're kind of talking about them each.
I'm mixing a lot of things.
Yeah. And so, because I think those are, because what maternity leave is supposed to be, I think in part, is you were living off of your salary. Let's say that your husband doesn't make money. He's an artist, right? So you are supporting your husband and now your kid off your accountant salary. You have to have this baby because even if the dad would opt to, we haven't figured out how to give him the womb. So you can't work during this. So we're going to give you maternity leave so that you can keep supporting yourself, your husband, and your new baby. At which point you come back, I think ideally, according to like the philosophy, at the same level you would have been when you stepped away 6 months ago, let's say, because people do work while they're pregnant. Let's say you step away after 3 months of pregnancy. So you're not hurt in terms of promotions. And now you're back in the corporate world while your husband stays home and raises the kid. That's what maternity leave is for. It sounds like what you and your dad were discussing was potentially a government-based UBI for moms or something. But maternity leave is just meant to bridge the gap while you have the baby. And then probably in the early months, when you as a mom, we really want you to be there with the baby. We don't want you to pass off the baby to a robot to take care of the kid.
Well, and then we were conflating a lot of things because this is my dad and I were.
But I think that you're pretty on board with, right? Like that version of maternity leave seems pretty solid to me.
I think there should be a federally funded from taxes maternity thing for months because I think that it is valuable to society.
Got it. You're just saying that for those, let's say 9 months that she's not working, the
Now,
government pays her wage exactly the same level that her accounting job would have been. And then she comes back to work.
I haven't thought about how much
over.
it should be. That's an interesting thing. I don't know how much it should be. That's an interesting question that I hadn't considered. Should it be a flat rate? Should it be
because she does have her home, which is based on her earnings. Let's assume her husband doesn't work.
Yeah.
So if you just say, well, here's minimum wage, she is going to default on her mortgage.
Interesting, because now and maybe this is why they do it, because now it is a rich person's. It is a tax that
affects the rich more than the poor. Yes.
More than the poor.
But if you don't do it that way, any rich woman who didn't hunt for an equally wealthy man and instead picked someone they loved because they weren't looking for a career in that person will default on their mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's an interesting, I have to think through this, and I'm not going to be able to get through all of it live right now.
Sure. That's just what I'm thinking of. Because especially like, let's say you bought the house 6 years ago. You're on a 30-year mortgage, but it's not like you bought the house and then got pregnant. You weren't irresponsible in any way. Mm-hmm. I think we want that person to be able to continue to live in their home.
So it could be government funded relative to your job, which I think.
You are.
Yes, but also to be fair,
you're helping the highest paid people.
Yeah, but you're paying the most as the highest paid. You know what I mean? You're putting a ton into that thing, and actually, what we're getting out of you is we're not paying you. We're paying your kid. Honestly, like it's not to make your life better, Mom. It's to make societies in 18 years better when this kid comes out and isn't a criminal and isn't unloved.
Can I reframe something a little bit? Mm-hmm. When the company pays the maternity leave, it's almost like the other people at that high paying job are paying taxes.
Yes.
So instead of having the country pay for the high paying taxes, you're saying all the other accountants who make a lot of money or good money, but like they all make good money, just like your sister in this scenario. Mm-hmm. They all actually make slightly less than they would if there was no maternity leave. Because if there's no maternity leave, they would all have that cash distributed to them.
Correct.
So it's almost like you treat the company as a community and they are paying the tax.
Yeah, I think I actually think it should be governmental, because I think the people who benefit are not the accountants. It is society at large. And I think society needs to own the things that it wants to create. And what it wants to create is a better country and better citizens in 18 years. I think that should be a burden that is shouldered by everyone, should pay into that pot. Now, poorer can pay less. And over the course of your life, just to be clear, if you're an accountant, you're going to pay more relative in taxes than you are going to take out in maternity leave, unless you make a profession out of being pregnant and they're never at your job. But like that will be a small window in which you are withdrawing more from the pot than you are putting in at that point in time.
I don't know. I'd have to think about more. Do I want the tax? Because it is a tax, basically. Do I want it to come from coworkers or from the nation at large? I'd have to think about it.
It creates a perverse incentive when it's within a single organization, which is like, it is officially not in your best interest to, like, let's say you hired 100% women. You know what I mean? Because they were the best candidates. Well, guess what? Now you shut down when, for an extended period of time, if they all whenever they have their baby, and it's not.
I think you got some solid diversification in terms of
age,
baby timing,
and baby time.
But they're all going to get pregnant. At the same moment.
Let's say that instead of, if it were men only firm, that firm, and they're the same quality, they're going to just be able to service clients.
Well, this is why people are saying force every company to hire 50-50, and then every company will equally bear the maternity burden.
I think just pay it as a country and don't, because now you know how I feel about forced hiring.
Well, sure. I'm just telling you, this is literally the thought process around forced hiring.
Yes. I do not want it done that way. I think we should pay as a collective, as a country, or as a state.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the thing that people won't like about that is that you are now there. I don't think there are many programs at a personal level where the biggest beneficiaries are the people who make the most money. Now, ironically, as we just talked about, there are actually a ton of programs where the wealthy make money because they make it through businesses and the government subsidizes their businesses. So the government does regularly send money to rich people. But I think optically that would be the biggest pushback on that, is that people would feel it was unfair for a program to send less money to someone based on the fact that they already made less money.
Well, then maybe it can just be a high fixed rate. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just like, here's, I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000 a month for a period of time. Like, that's a pretty high.
Well, you're literally saying you can't have a baby if you make $300,000 a year, have bought a house based on that income, unless you have a husband who makes
saying you have to save. You just need to, like, again, America, you need to not be able to work for 6 months and receive.
You're mandating that though. You're basically saying if you are a female whose partner doesn't make a lot of money.
I'm not mandating. The world is mandating that if you want to sit down on your ass, you have to have put something away.
Well, the world's not, just because the world's not mandating that at all. That's your problem.
Yes.
But the world isn't mandating that. No one is mandating that. No one's lobbying for that. So a very small number of people have a problem with it currently, which you might not think is fair, but the world is not telling people that.
Sorry. Yes. The idea that if you want to not work today, you need to have saved yesterday is like, that is how things work.
Sure. That's what we have to do if we want to stop working.
Yes. Or you can, take, borrow, steal, share from someone else is the other.
Well, and the point of maternity leave is the thought process that it's
a flat rate. I like a flat rate.
Unfair that a woman would have to buy a smaller house than her male counterpart, because when the male counterpart wants to have kids, they don't have to take 9 months off and the female does. So let's say they both have a stay-at-home partner.
But if a gay male couple wants to have a kid, it needs the same amount of attention, and in fact, probably more because they don't have breasts to care for it. So I'm not sure that that's true, that women have to give more to children than men do. Like if a gay couple wants to adopt a child and have a child, from the day that it's born.
I don't know how I've not had someone pregnant, but my impression for the whole point of maternity leave is that you can't work through till the day you give birth. Now, maybe you're saying that's not true. Maybe you're saying just show up to work.
I mean, I've heard some like hardcore crazy women that like go right up to the button.
But that is the point of maternity leave. It's not necessarily for the after. It's also for the.
It's much more for the after, is my understanding.
But it's also for the before.
There is some before. It is much more after. I think people go up to like 8-ish and sometimes more if they're high corporate people, and it's much more for the after, is my understanding. Could be wrong.